Get out of the car! Now, Blackie!
Please. I haven't done anything.
I said out!
Sir, I'm asking why.
She's talking back now? You hear that, Coulter? This one thinks she's got rights.
Pruitt yanked Blair Foster from the Honda, slammed her face first on a hood, snapped the cuffs tight.
That's what happens when you black folks don't learn your place.
Both cops burst out laughing. A woman at the gas pump watched, looked away. Blair didn't scream, didn't cry. But what came out of her mouth next ended 2 careers, triggered a federal investigation, and put this town on a map it never wanted to be on. The dashcam timestamp read 4:47 p.m., Saturday, Ridgemont, Mississippi. Population 800. 1 gas station, 1 diner, 2 cops with nothing better to do. Blair's Honda Civic had rolled down Route 12 at 31 in a 35 zone. No swerving, no broken taillight, no expired tags. Just a black woman behind the wheel, driving through the wrong town at the wrong time. Pruitt had hit the lights anyway. "Bet you $5 she cries," Coulter had said before they pulled her over. Now here she was, face on hot metal. Gospel music still bleeding from the car stereo, a half-empty water bottle rolling off the seat, hitting the asphalt. Pruitt paced behind her. "You know what I love about this job, Coulter? Teaching manners." He flicked the back of Blair's ear. "Especially to the ones who never got taught at home." "Please remove your hand," Blair said. Pruitt froze, then smiled wider. "Or what?" Blair said nothing. Her eyes locked on the dash cam mounted on the cruiser's windshield. The red recording light blinked steady. She'd learned a long time ago that stillness was its own kind of armor, that silence could outlast any badge, any man who confused authority with power. Blair Foster wasn't silent because she was afraid. She was counting minutes. Ridgemont raised Blair Foster the way it raised every black child, with 1 foot on their neck and a smile that said, "Be grateful." She grew up on Mayhew Road, the unpaved side of town where the street lights stopped and the county forgot to pick up trash. Her mother, Gloria Foster, worked double shifts at the county hospital. 12 hours wiping blood, 12 hours wiping tears, 6 days a week for 23 years. Her father, Raymond, fixed engines at Hendricks Auto until the cancer took him. Blair was 14. The shop didn't send flowers. At school, the lessons came early. 3rd grade, a white boy named Trent Bosley yanked her braids in the cafeteria and said, "Your hair looks like a mop. Does your mama clean floors with it?" The teacher saw. The teacher said nothing. 5th grade, a substitute handed back tests in order of score. Blair's was on top. The boy behind her, Kyle Weber, snatched it from her desk and said, "No way a black girl beat me. She probably cheated." The substitute shrugged. "Let's just move on." 7th grade. The guidance counselor told Gloria that Blair should consider vocational school. College might be a reach given her background. Gloria asked what background he meant. He didn't answer. Blair went home that night and asked Gloria why no one ever helped. Gloria set down her fork, looked her daughter in the eye. "Because help isn't coming, baby, not for us. So you become the thing they can't ignore." Blair didn't forget that sentence. She carved it into every exam, every scholarship essay, every late night at the library while Ridgemont slept. Full ride to Georgetown, international security, top of her class, not because the professors liked her, but because her papers left them no choice. Her thesis advisor once told a colleague, "She writes like she's building a case against the world." He meant it as a compliment. Blair heard it as a description. After Georgetown, the Department of Defense. She started as an intern fetching coffee for people who didn't learn her name for 6 months. "Hey, you, the new girl, dark hair, they'd say, even though she was the only black woman in the building. One senior analyst asked her 3 times in 1 week if she was the cleaning lady. Another left his lunch tray on her desk with a sticky note. "Thanks, hun." She filed briefs, organized classified folders, bit her tongue so many times it should have bled, but she climbed. Analyst, policy advisor, senior strategist, and then Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Strategy and Force Development. The kind of title that makes a room go quiet when the nameplate comes out. Blair had briefed the president in the Situation Room. She'd sat across from 4-star generals who leaned forward when she spoke. She'd written memos that changed troop deployments across 3 continents. But here's the thing about Blair Foster, and this is the part that mattered most on that Saturday afternoon in Ridgemont. She never changed how she looked. Same gray hoodies, same old Honda Civic with the dent on the passenger door, same grocery store sneakers. She didn't carry business cards, didn't wear her title, didn't name-drop the Pentagon at dinner parties, mostly because she didn't go to dinner parties. Every month, she drove 3 hours from D.C. back to Ridgemont, cooked red beans and rice with Gloria, sat on the porch, went to Sunday service at Greater Hope Baptist, where Pastor Coleman still called her baby girl, and nobody knew what she did Monday through Friday. In Washington, she moved budgets worth more than Ridgemont's entire tax base. In Ridgemont, she was still just the foster girl from Mayhew Road, Raymond's daughter, Gloria's child, the quiet one with the good grades who left and somehow hadn't forgotten to come back. That was the woman Danny Pruitt had just slammed against the hood of his cruiser. That was the woman Shane Coulter was filming for laughs. A woman who'd sat in rooms where one wrong sentence could start a war, and kept her composure every time. The cops saw a hoodie, an old car, dark skin, a mouth that wouldn't stay shut. They didn't see the clearance badge in the glove compartment, didn't see the direct line to the Secretary of Defense saved in her phone, didn't see 20 years of silence, strategy, and survival packed into a 5'6" frame with her cheek still pressed against their hood. They saw what Ridgemont had always taught them to see. Nothing. Pruitt checked her license the way a man reads a parking ticket. Barely. He held it under the streetlight, squinted, and tossed it onto the Civic's roof. Blair Foster, D.C. address. He said it like an accusation. Long way from home, aren't you? I'm visiting my mother. She lives on Mayhew Road. Mayhew Road. Pruitt looked at Coulter. That's the Section 8 side, isn't it? Welfare Row, Coulter said, not looking up from his phone. Pruitt turned back to Blair. She was still pressed against the hood, hands locked behind her. The cuffs had already left red marks on her wrists. He didn't care. He leaned in close enough that she could smell the wintergreen dip packed in his lower lip. So let me get this straight. You drive down from D.C. in this piece of junk car, you roll through my town, and when I pull you over, lawfully, you decide to give me attitude? I asked a question. That's not attitude. See, that right there? Pruitt pointed at her face. That mouth. That's your problem. Your people always got something smart to say, always got an opinion, never got the sense to keep it shut. He stepped back, pulled out his ticket pad, started writing slow. Real slow. The way someone writes when they want you to watch. Failure to comply with a lawful order, he said out loud as he wrote. Resisting. Obstruction. He looked up. How's that sound? I didn't resist anything. You resisted the moment you opened your mouth. Pruitt ripped the ticket off the pad and held it in front of Blair's face. But don't worry. I'm sure the judge will love hearing your side. They always do with you people. Coulter walked a slow circle around the Honda. He opened the passenger door without asking, rifled through the glove compartment, tossed a stack of napkins on the ground, pulled out a pair of sunglasses and tried them on. Nice shades, he said. Probably stolen. Those are mine, Blair said. Sure they are. Coulter dropped them on the asphalt, stepped on them. The crack was loud enough to reach the dashcam mic. Oops. Pruitt laughed, that same high, wheezing laugh. The kind that only comes out when a man knows nobody's going to stop him. A pickup truck slowed down at the intersection. The driver, white, mid-50s, trucker cap, looked at Blair in cuffs, looked at the two cops, and kept driving. Didn't even brake. Blair watched the truck disappear. She'd seen that look before. The look that says, "Not my problem." The look that Ridgemont had perfected over generations. The art of looking away when looking was all that was needed. What's this? Coulter held up a leather folder he'd pulled from under the seat. Dark brown, official-looking. He flipped it open. Inside, a Department of Defense access badge. Blair's photo. Her title printed in small block letters beneath the seal. Coulter didn't read it. Didn't even look at the photo. He tossed the folder onto the passenger seat like junk mail. Bunch of papers, he said to Pruitt. Probably fake. You know how they do. Fake IDs, fake insurance, fake everything. Wouldn't surprise me, Pruitt said. He grabbed Blair's arm and turned her around to face him. You got any warrants I should know about? No. Any drugs in the vehicle? No. You sure? Because where I'm standing, something about this whole situation smells off. He wrinkled his nose. Theatrical. Exaggerated. Actually, yeah. Something definitely smells. Coulter snorted. Pruitt grinned at his own joke, proud of it, the way a child is proud of writing a bad word on a bathroom wall. He wasn't done. You know, Coulter, I've been doing this a long time, and every single time, it's the same story. They come rolling through here in their little beat-up cars, acting like they own the road. Then when you pull them over, it's always, "I didn't do nothing, officer. Why you stopping me, officer?" Like they don't know. He looked at Blair. You know why, don't you? Deep down, you know exactly why. Blair didn't answer. That's what I thought. Pruitt spat wintergreen juice onto the asphalt, 2 inches from Blair's shoe. Smart girl. See, you can learn. Coulter scrolled through Blair's phone now. No permission, no warrant. Just thumbs moving across a screen that didn't belong to him. She's got a lot of DC contacts in here, Coulter said, smirking. Bet half of them are fake. The other half probably selling something I don't want to know about. Check her photos, Pruitt said. Already on it. Coulter swiped through the camera roll. Government buildings, flags, some old lady on a porch. He laughed. Girl thinks she's important. Blair's jaw tightened. 1 degree. Just enough that the dashcam might have caught it if anyone ever bothered to look frame by frame. But her voice stayed level, flat. The same voice she used when generals tried to talk over her in briefings. Are you going to charge me with something, or are you going to let me go? Charge you? Pruitt tilted his head. Honey, I haven't even started with you yet. You're in my town, my jurisdiction, my rules. And right now, my rule says you stand there and keep that pretty little mouth closed until I decide what to do with you. He turned to Coulter. Run her plates again. Take your time. I want to enjoy this. Coulter leaned against the cruiser, typing slow with his thumbs, still smiling. The sun was going down behind the pine trees. The gas station fluorescents buzzed on. The woman who'd been pumping gas earlier was gone. The parking lot was empty. It was just Blair, 2 cops, and a dash cam nobody thought would ever matter. 14 minutes had passed since the stop. Blair hadn't raised her voice once, hadn't moved, hadn't given them a single thing they could use. But behind those still eyes, something was turning, a decision forming. The kind of decision that doesn't come from anger. It comes from arithmetic, from knowing exactly what cards you hold and exactly when to lay them down. She was almost ready. 17 minutes in. The sky over Ridgemont was turning that deep copper color it gets before dark, the kind of light that makes everything look like an old photograph. Blair's wrists had gone numb. The cuffs were too tight. She could feel her pulse beating against the metal. Pruitt was on his second lap around the Honda, opening the trunk now, pulling out a suitcase, unzipping it right there on the roadside, holding up a blouse like it was evidence. Victoria's Secret? He dangled it between two fingers. Damn, Coulter. She's got expensive taste for a girl from Mayhew Road. Probably boosted it, Coulter said. Probably. Pruitt stuffed the blouse back in wrong and tossed the suitcase on the ground. It landed open. Blair's clothes spilled onto the gravel. A Sunday dress, a pair of flats, a framed photo of her and Gloria on the porch. The glass cracked when it hit the ground. Blair looked at the photo. The crack ran right between their two faces. "Are you done?" she said. Pruitt slammed the trunk, walked back to her, stood close. Too close. The way men stand when they want you to feel small. "I'm done when I say I'm done. You got that?" He tapped her forehead with one finger. "Or is that too complicated for you?" He picked up the Sunday dress from the gravel, held it against his chest like a fashion model, batted his eyelashes. "What do you think, Coulter? Is this my color?" "You'd look gorgeous, Danny." They both cracked up. The Sunday dress, the one Gloria had ironed and hung in Blair's closet last visit, the one Blair wore to Greater Hope Baptist every month, was balled up and tossed back on the ground. Pruitt stepped over it like it was a rag. "Who's this?" Pruitt picked up the cracked photo, squinted at it. "Let me guess, your grandmama? She teach you how to steal too? Or just how to talk back to cops?" "That's my mother." Blair's voice was quiet, controlled, but something behind her eyes shifted. A door that had been cracked open was now being pulled shut, locked, bolted. "Your mother." Pruitt set the photo face down on the trunk. "Well, tell your mother she raised a real piece of work." Blair let the silence sit for exactly 3 seconds. Then, "I'm entitled to a phone call." Pruitt blinked. "You're not under arrest. I'm in handcuffs. You've searched my vehicle without consent. You've written citations for charges that don't exist. I'm making a phone call." The recitation was clean, mechanical, like someone reading from a manual they'd memorized years ago. Pruitt looked at Coulter. Coulter shrugged. "Fine." Pruitt pulled Blair's phone from the cup holder in the Honda. "Call your mama. Tell her to come get you. Maybe she can teach you some manners on the drive home." "I'm not calling my mother." "Then who? Your baby daddy? Your lawyer?" Pruitt grinned. "Public defender's office closes at 4, sweetheart." Blair looked at him. Steady. The same eyes that had held a room at the Pentagon when 3 generals disagreed with her assessment, and she didn't blink. "I'd like to call the Pentagon." The word landed like a rock in a still pond. For a half-second, nothing. Just the gas station fluorescents buzzing and a dog barking somewhere on Route 12. Then Pruitt's face cracked. Not in shock, in pure, unfiltered amusement. He doubled over, slapped his knee. The laugh came out high and broken, like a man who'd just heard the funniest thing of his entire life. "The Pentagon!" He could barely get the word out. "Coulter. Coulter, you hear that? She wants to call the Pentagon." Coulter lost it. He braced himself against the cruiser door, phone shaking in his hand, recording everything. "Oh my God. Oh my God. This is the best stop we've ever had. The Pentagon!" Coulter wheezed. "Next, she's gonna say she knows the president. Or maybe she is the president. President of Mayhew Road." He slapped the cruiser roof. "Girl, you are entertainment." Pruitt wiped his eyes, steadied himself, put on a mock-serious voice, holding an invisible phone to his ear. "Hello, Pentagon? Yeah, this is Officer Pruitt down in Ridgemont. We got a real VIP here in cuffs. She's got a Honda Civic and a bad attitude. Send the Marines." They howled. Both of them. The dashcam caught every second. Two grown men in uniform laughing so hard their duty belts shook. "You know what?" Pruitt unlocked Blair's phone with a swipe, no passcode, and held it out. "Go ahead, call. I want to hear this. Put it on speaker. Coulter, come here. You're going to want to hear who picks up." Blair took the phone with cuffed hands. Awkward grip, fingers swollen from the tight metal. She didn't scroll through contacts. She typed a number from memory. 10 digits, no hesitation. The phone rang once, twice. A male voice answered, crisp, military clean. The kind of voice that belongs to someone who sits behind a desk with a flag on each side. "Office of Deputy Assistant Secretary Foster, how may I direct your call?" The laughter stopped, not slowly, not fading out. It stopped, the way a heartbeat stops on a monitor. One moment, sound. Next moment, nothing. Pruitt's mouth was still open, the shape of his last laugh frozen on his face. Blair spoke into the phone, calm, precise. Every word measured the way ammunition is measured, by caliber. "This is Secretary Foster. I've been unlawfully detained by Ridgemont Police Department. Officers badge numbers 4412 and 4508. The dashcam is recording. Please notify the Secretary's office immediately and route this to the Inspector General." "Understood, ma'am. Initiating protocol. Stay on the line." Blair lowered the phone, looked at Pruitt. She didn't smile, didn't gloat, didn't say a word. She didn't have to. The color was draining from Danny Pruitt's face, the way water drains from a cracked glass. Slow at first, then all at once. Coulter's phone hand dropped to his side. The recording was still running. He'd forgotten to stop it. Somewhere on the other end of Blair's call, wheels were already turning, calls being made, chains of command activated. The kind of machinery that small-town cops in small-town Mississippi don't even know exists, until it lands on them. The gas station fluorescence hummed. The dog on Route 12 stopped barking. And for the first time in 17 minutes, Ridgemont was perfectly, terribly silent. 90 seconds. That's all it took. 90 seconds between Blair's call and the first ring at Ridgemont Police Department's front desk. Sergeant Mike Dawson was halfway through a gas station burrito when the phone screamed. He wiped his mouth, picked up. "Ridgemont PD, Sergeant This is Lieutenant Colonel James Whitfield, Office of the Inspector General, United States Department of Defense. I need to speak with your commanding officer immediately." Dawson set the burrito down. His hand was shaking, and he didn't know why yet. "Sir, can I ask what this is regarding?" "You have two officers currently detaining a senior Defense Department official, Deputy Assistant Secretary Blair Foster, badge numbers 4412 and 4508. This call is being recorded and transcribed in real time. I need your CO on this line in the next 60 seconds. Dawson grabbed his radio. Didn't bother with protocol. Didn't bother with codes. "Pruitt, what the hell did you do?" Static. Then Pruitt's voice, still carrying the ghost of that laugh, but thinner now, shaky. "Sarge, it's nothing. We got a traffic stop on Route 12. Some lady running her mouth. She made a phone call trying to bluff us with some Pentagon bull." "That is not a bluff!" Dawson's voice cracked through the radio, loud enough for Blair to hear from 15 feet away. "I've got a lieutenant colonel from the Inspector General's office on my phone right now. He said she's a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. Do you understand what that means?" Silence on the radio. "Pruitt, Do you copy? Copy. Uncuff her, now. Do not say another word to her. Do not touch her. Do not touch her vehicle. Do not touch her belongings. Stand down and wait for the chief. He's being contacted as we speak. Blair heard every word. The radio was loud. Ridgemont PD didn't encrypt their channels. Never needed to. Nothing ever happened here. Until now. Pruitt stood 5 feet from Blair. The swagger was gone. The lean-in close posture was gone. The finger-tapping, the jokes, the fake phone call to the Pentagon. All of it evaporated like spit on a hot engine block. His hands were trembling. She could see it. He could see her seeing it. Coulter was pacing behind the cruiser. Fast, short steps. The walk of a man whose brain was replaying every word he'd said in the last 20 minutes. President of Mayhew Road. Probably stolen. Girl thinks she's important. And realizing that every syllable had been captured. On dashcam. On his own phone. On a recording that was already being transcribed at the Department of Defense. Danny, Coulter's voice was barely audible. Danny, we need to... What do we... Shut up. Pruitt's jaw was clenched so tight the muscle twitched. Just shut up. He looked at Blair. The same woman he'd flicked on the ear. The same woman whose forehead he'd tapped like she was a child. The same woman whose mother's photo he'd mocked. She stood there, with her wrists still bound behind her back, looking at him the way a surgeon looks at an X-ray. Clinical. Detached. Already knowing the diagnosis. Turn around, he said. Quiet. Almost a whisper. Blair turned. Pruitt reached for the cuffs. His fingers fumbled with the key. It took him 3 tries. 3 tries to undo what he'd snapped shut in half a second. The cuffs came off. Blair brought her hands forward, rotated her wrists. The skin was raw, red welts in perfect circles, like bracelets made of something that wasn't meant to be worn. She didn't rub them, didn't wince. She held her wrists at her sides and let the marks speak for themselves. Coulter had backed up against the cruiser, phone in his pocket now, arms crossed. He looked like a kid standing outside the principal's office, except this principal wore stars on his shoulders and worked in a building with its own zip code. Ma'am, Pruitt started. Don't. Blair's voice was quiet. Not angry, not triumphant, just done. Don't ma'am me now. 5 minutes ago I was sweetheart. I was honey. I was your kind. You flicked my ear like I was an animal. You mocked my mother's picture. You told me I smelled. She held up her wrists. The red welts caught the last of the daylight. So don't you dare ma'am me now. Pruitt closed his mouth. Swallowed. His Adam's apple bobbed like a man trying to keep something down. 12 minutes later, a black Chevy Tahoe tore down Route 12 doing 60 in a 35. No sirens, just speed. Police Chief Harold Grimes stepped out before the engine fully stopped. His shirt was half tucked. His hair was wet. He'd been in the shower when Dawson called. Grimes had been chief for 11 years. In that time, his biggest crisis had been a stolen riding mower. He was not prepared for this. He walked toward Blair, extended his hand. The handshake of a man who'd practiced apologies in the car mirror on the way over. Miss Foster, I want to personally... It's Secretary Foster. Blair didn't take his hand. And you can save the apology for the investigation. Grimes's hand hung in the air for 3 full seconds before he pulled it back. He turned to Pruitt and Coulter. The look on his face was the look of a man calculating exactly how much of his career had just burned down. Badges. Both of you. Now. Pruitt unclipped his badge. His fingers were still shaking. He held it out like something he'd already lost. Coulter's hands moved slower. He unclipped his, looked at it, maybe for the last time, and placed it in the chief's palm without a word. Grimes put both badges in his jacket pocket. Didn't look at them again. Inside the station, every phone was ringing. Dawson had called in the night shift early. 2 deputies stood in the parking lot, smoking, not talking. The dispatcher had her head in her hands. The news was already moving. Not through Ridgemont, but above it. Through channels these officers didn't have access to. Through offices they'd never see. Through a chain of command that started with a woman in a gray hoodie and ended somewhere they couldn't even imagine. Blair walked to her Honda, picked up the suitcase from the gravel, folded the Sunday dress that had fallen out, placed the cracked photo of her and Gloria on the passenger seat. She didn't speed away, didn't peel out. She signaled left, checked her mirrors, and pulled onto Route 12 at exactly the speed limit. In her rear view, 2 cops without badges, a chief without answers, and a town that was about to become very, very famous for all the wrong reasons. The dashcam footage leaked on a Tuesday. No one knew who uploaded it. Internal Affairs would spend 3 weeks trying to trace the source and come up empty. But by 6 a.m. Eastern, the video was on Twitter. By 8 a.m., it was on every major news site in the country. By noon, it had a name. People called it the Ridgemont tape. 14 minutes and 37 seconds. That's how long it ran. Unedited, uncut. The audio clean enough to hear every word, every laugh, every crack of Blair's sunglasses under Coulter's boot. The internet did what the internet does. It watched, it rewound, it screen grabbed, it raged. The first clip to go viral was 6 seconds long. Pruitt high-fiving Coulter across Blair's back. The caption read, "They high-fived over a handcuffed black woman's body." Let that sink in. 40 million views in 48 hours. The second clip was the phone call. Pruitt's mock Pentagon impression, "Send the Marines," followed by the real Pentagon voice answering. The silence that followed. Pruitt's frozen face. Someone set it to the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme. 112 million videos. Most shared video on the platform for 3 consecutive days. The third clip was quieter, less flashy, but it cut deeper than the others. It was the moment Coulter pulled the Department of Defense badge from the glove compartment, glanced at it for less than a second, and tossed it onto the seat. Bunch of papers, probably fake. The clip was 7 seconds. The comments section ran to 60,000 entries. The top comment, with 2 million likes, read, "He held her entire career in his hands and threw it away because she was black." That's America in 7 seconds. Hashtags erupted. Hashtag Justice for Blair trended in all 50 states within 6 hours. Hashtag Pentagon Pull Up became a meme format. People posting photos of themselves in everyday clothes next to their professional headshots. A janitor in scrubs next to his MD diploma. A woman in overalls next to her courtroom portrait. A teenager in a fast food uniform next to her MIT acceptance letter. The message was clear. You don't know who you're disrespecting. A fourth clip surfaced that most news outlets wouldn't play unedited. Pruitt flicking Blair's ear. The audio, especially to the ones who never got taught at home. Then his hands on her mother's photo. She teach you how to steal, too? The comment sections didn't just rage. They grieved. One reply, from a black woman in Georgia, read, "My mama's photo sits on my dashboard, too. If a cop touched it like that, I don't know what I'd do. Blair is stronger than all of us." It got 4 million likes. The most liked reply in the platform's history, hashtag RidgemontPD, became something else entirely. Not a meme, a target. People pulled every public record they could find. Pruitt's previous complaints, 7 in 4 years, all from black residents, all dismissed. Coulter's social media, now deleted but archived. Confederate flag profile picture, 2019. A post joking about driving while black from 2021. a comment on a news article about police reform. If they don't want trouble, they should act right. The department tried damage control. A statement released Wednesday morning. The Ridgemont Police Department takes all allegations of misconduct seriously. Officers Pruitt and Coulter have been placed on administrative leave pending a full internal review. Administrative leave with pay. The internet translated, paid vacation for humiliating a black woman. By Thursday, the mayor of Ridgemont, a man named Gene Hartwell, who'd been in office for 9 years and hadn't held a press conference in 6, stood behind a podium with 3 microphones and no plan. We don't condone. The actions depicted in the video do not reflect the values of. A reporter cut him off. Mayor Hartwell, the officer said your kind and you black folks. Does Ridgemont have a racial profiling problem? Hartwell blinked, looked at his notes, looked at the cameras, said, I'm not prepared to answer that at this time. The clip went viral by dinner. Someone remixed it with a laugh track. Someone else turned it into a meme template. Does Ridgemont have a racial profiling problem? Followed by screenshots of Pruitt's 7 dismissed complaints, Coulter's Confederate flag, and the dashcam still frame of 2 officers high-fiving over a handcuffed black woman. The answer was in the meme. It always had been. Friday. Pruitt and Coulter's suspension upgraded to without pay. Not because the department suddenly found its conscience, because 2 city council members threatened to resign publicly if it didn't happen. Saturday, the NAACP filed a formal complaint. 3 civil rights attorneys offered Blair pro bono representation. She declined all 3. Sunday, the Department of Justice announced a preliminary inquiry into the Ridgemont Police Department's traffic stop records. A federal team would arrive Monday. The data they found would take weeks to compile, but seconds to understand. Over the past 5 years, 73% of Pruitt's routine traffic stops involved black drivers, in a town that was 61% white. Coulter's numbers were worse, 81%. Neither officer had ever been flagged. Neither had ever been reviewed. The system hadn't failed. The system had worked exactly as designed. Ridgemont had never made national news before. Not for the Catfish Festival, not for the high school football team's state run in 2014. Not for anything. Now, it was famous. The kind of famous that makes property values drop and Chamber of Commerce websites go dark. And somewhere in Washington, D.C., Blair Foster sat at her desk on the 4th floor of the Pentagon. Same gray hoodie, dry cleaned now, same quiet demeanor. She hadn't done a single interview, hadn't posted a single statement, hadn't even changed her voicemail. Her phone rang every 6 minutes. She let it go to voicemail every time. She was waiting. Not for attention, not for apologies, for something that actually mattered. 12 days after the stop, Blair Foster broke her silence. She chose one interview, one camera, one chair. CBS Evening News. The anchor across from her had prepared 40 minutes of questions. Blair gave her 22. That was enough. She walked into the studio in a black suit, collar sharp, posture straight, hair pulled back the same way it had been in the Honda. But everything else was different. The woman on screen didn't look like the woman on the dash cam. She looked like someone who moved defense budgets and sat in rooms where wars were planned. That was the point. The first question was soft, expected. Secretary Foster, how are you feeling? Blair paused. 2 full seconds. Then, I'm not here to talk about my feelings. I'm here to talk about a system. The anchor adjusted, leaned in. Walk us through that day. I was driving to see my mother. I was doing 4 miles under the speed limit. I had both hands on the wheel. I was pulled over because I was black in a town that treats that as probable cause. Everything after that was predictable. Predictable? I've been stopped 11 times in 12 years. 4 times in Ridgemont alone. Every time for nothing. Every time the same questions. Where are you going? Where are you coming from? What's in the car? The script doesn't change. Only the officer does. The anchor went to the clip, the one where Pruitt said, "Your kind." The one where Coulter stepped on the sunglasses. Blair watched it on the studio monitor. Her face didn't move. How did it feel, hearing those words? Blair took a breath. Slow. The kind of breath a person takes when they're choosing between the diplomatic answer and the real one. It felt familiar. That's the part that hurts the most. It wasn't shocking. It wasn't new. I've been called worse, in better buildings, by men with better titles. The difference is, this time there was a camera. The anchor paused. The producer in the booth later said that was the moment they knew the interview would lead the broadcast. Blair continued, unprompted. 3 weeks before that stop, I briefed the National Security Council on a classified force restructuring. I sat at a table with the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and the National Security Advisor. I presented for 40 minutes. They asked questions for 20. One of them thanked me by name. That same month, a security guard at the Pentagon entrance stopped me and asked if I was looking for the delivery entrance. It was my 4th year in the building. She let that land. He flicked my ear, like I was a bug. He tapped my forehead like I was a dog that wouldn't sit. He picked up my mother's photo, the only photo I carry, and asked if my mother taught me how to steal. Blair's voice stayed level, but her hands, folded in her lap, pressed tighter together. He held up my Sunday dress and wore it like a costume. And his partner scrolled through my phone, my personal photos, my contacts, and laughed. Called me entertainment. The anchor's mouth opened, then closed. There was no follow-up question. There didn't need to be. Those weren't mistakes, Blair said. Those were choices, every single one. And they made those choices because they looked at me and decided I was no one, that I had no one, that nothing I said or did would ever matter. The uniform doesn't matter. The badge doesn't matter. The title doesn't matter. If you're black in this country, there is always someone who will look at you and see the hoodie before they see the human being. Then came the part that broke the internet. Not the anger, not the policy. The part about Gloria. My mother is 68 years old. She's lived in Ridgemont her entire life. She drives a 2009 Toyota Corolla. It's blue. She keeps it clean. She drives to church on Sunday, to the grocery store on Wednesday, and to the hospital where she worked for 23 years, even though she's retired now, because she volunteers in the children's wing. Blair's voice changed, just slightly. A half degree of warmth that hadn't been there before. She was pulled over 3 times last year, on the same road where I was stopped, same stretch of Route 12. Once for a broken taillight that wasn't broken, once for driving too slow in the left lane, on a road that doesn't have lanes. Once for matching the description of a vehicle involved in a reported incident. There was no reported incident. Blair looked directly into the camera, not at the anchor, at the lens. My mother doesn't have a Pentagon number to call. She doesn't have a title. She doesn't have a clearance badge. She has a rosary, a Corolla, and 68 years of being told to be grateful for what she has. And when those officers pulled her over, she did exactly what I did. She sat still, she answered politely, and she prayed it would end without violence. The studio was silent. The anchor had stopped writing notes. That's why I'm here. Not for me. I made a phone call, and it changed everything in 3 minutes. That's not justice. That's privilege. And I don't want privilege. I want a country where Gloria Foster gets the same 3 minutes, without needing the Pentagon to make it happen. The clip aired at 6:30 p.m. By midnight, it had 50 million views. By morning, Gloria Foster was the #1 trending name in the country. a 68-year-old retired nurse in Ridgemont, Mississippi, who had never once raised her voice, never once filed a complaint, and never once been treated like she mattered. Gloria was interviewed the next day, local affiliate, sitting on her porch on Mayhew Road, in the same chair where she'd rocked Blair to sleep as a baby. The reporter asked, "What do you want people to know about your daughter?" Gloria smoothed her dress, looked past the camera toward the road. "I raised her to be strong, but no mother should have to raise her daughter to survive her own country." 1 week later, Blair announced the Foster Forward Foundation, free legal representation for victims of racial profiling in towns with populations under 5,000. Towns too small for the ACLU to notice, towns too poor for civil rights attorneys to visit, towns exactly like Ridgemont. The first 100 cases were filed within the month. 6 months later, Ridgemont looked the same. Same gas station, same diner, same pine trees lining Route 12. But underneath the surface, everything had shifted. The way a house looks fine until you check the foundation. Danny Pruitt was fired. Not suspended, not reassigned. Fired. The termination letter cited conduct unbecoming, racial bias in enforcement, and violation of departmental use of force policy. He appealed. The appeal was denied in 9 minutes, the shortest in the department's history. Last anyone heard, he was working at a tire shop 2 counties over. He didn't list law enforcement on his resume. Shane Coulter resigned before they could fire him, turned in his badge, his weapon, and a 1-sentence letter. "I resign, effective immediately." No apology, no explanation. His social media stayed deleted. He moved to Florida, changed his phone number. The internet found him anyway. 3 other officers were disciplined, 2 for failing to report prior complaints against Pruitt, 1 for deleting a civilian's dashcam footage in an unrelated stop 3 years earlier. The dominoes hadn't just fallen. They revealed a whole row nobody knew was standing. Police Chief Harold Grimes held his job for exactly 41 days after the tape went public. On day 42, the city council voted 5-1 for his removal. He stood at the same podium where he'd fumbled his press conference, read a 3-line statement, and walked out without taking questions. His parking spot was reassigned by lunch. The Department of Justice published its findings on a Thursday in October. 17 pages. The summary fit in 1 sentence. The Ridgemont Police Department engaged in a pattern of discriminatory policing targeting Black residents in traffic enforcement, search and seizure procedures, and use of force incidents. Federal oversight. 5 years. Mandatory body cameras. Quarterly audits. Bias training. Not the 2-hour PowerPoint kind, but the kind with federal monitors sitting in the back of the room taking notes. Ridgemont PD's new chief was a woman. First in the department's history. Her name was Catherine Marsh, former state trooper, 20 years of service. She didn't give a speech on her first day. She walked into the building, took down the old department photo in the lobby, the one with Pruitt grinning in the second row, and replaced it with the new use of force policy. Framed. Glass front. Eye level. The Foster Forward Foundation processed 214 cases in its first year. 12 resulted in officer terminations. 31 led to policy changes in departments that had never been audited. 68 families received legal representation for the first time in their lives. The foundation operated out of a 2-room office in downtown D.C. Blair paid the rent out of her own salary. And every month, every single month, Blair Foster still drove that Honda Civic down I-95, turned onto Route 12, and pulled into the driveway on Mayhew Road. Same gravel, same porch, same screen door that didn't close right. Gloria always had the red beans on the stove before Blair's car reached the mailbox. She could hear the Honda from 3 blocks away, something about the engine knock on the left side, the one Blair never got fixed. They'd eat, they'd sit on the porch, they'd watch the road. Sometimes a patrol car passed. New markings, new officers, body cameras blinking on their chests like small, steady heartbeats. Gloria would watch it pass, then look at Blair, then say nothing. Because some things don't need words. Some things just need a porch, a plate of food, and the knowledge that the road outside is a little bit safer than it was before. Blair would sip her tea, watch the taillights disappear down Route 12, and just for a moment, just for one quiet, ordinary, unheroic moment, Ridgemont felt like the kind of town it always should have been. If this story made you feel something, anger, hope, anything, drop a comment and tell us. Should Blair have stayed silent, or was she right to make that call? Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that button, because the next story we're telling hits even harder than this one.